Good morning, and welcome to the Single Mom Coffee Break, where every Tuesday morning we pull up, sit down, have a cup of coffee or kombucha or water or whatever floats your boat, and we just talk and spend some time with one another. I remember when I first became a single mom 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, and my kids were in preschool, and all the other moms would drop their kids off at preschool, and then they'd go back out to the parking lot and they'd chat, and I'd hear them say, okay, see you at Starbucks, or meet me at Dunkin', or some other arrangements that I knew I couldn't participate in. And most of the time, I think I probably gave off the vibe that the other moms didn't necessarily even invite me. But I probably gave off that single mom vibe, that deer in the headlights. Who knows? The telltale signs were probably me like running to my car and rushing off, looking like I was a day late and a dollar short. But on the few occasions when one of the other moms did invite me out to coffee, I probably came up with some kind of lame excuses because I didn't really want to tell them, hey, I don't even have the $5 for the soy latte at Starbucks. And even more than that, I don't have the 1 or 2 hours to have leisure time like that. That was a day that either I had to leave and rush off to work to try to make money so that I could make ends meet, or maybe that was a day that I had to go home and do the job of 2 people and mow the lawn or climb up onto the roof to go up there and try to figure out, hey, why is my roof leaking, and that kind of thing. And so there were a number of years when I felt I was lonely. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of single moms don't necessarily talk about. Of course, it's easy to think about the fact that you're lonely because you don't have a partner. And that's the obvious kind of loneliness that comes with being a single mom. But there's another type of loneliness that comes from the fact that sometimes it becomes harder to connect with other women in the community because we've lost a lot of the things that we had in common with them. Women will sit together and talk about their marriage or their relationships or the little things about their spouse that annoys them, like how he keeps leaving his laundry on the bathroom floor and stuff like that. And so that's one reason that we've lost some commonality with other women. Another reason can be that sometimes we may feel, whether it's real or imagined, that other moms don't necessarily want to be with us. I remember one friend of mine saying, hey, I feel like they think it's catching, that being single or your marriage falling apart is catching. It's contagious, right? So the other moms don't necessarily want to be with you. And now that I look back on that, I realize probably a lot of that was just imagined on my part, but it felt like that at the time, right? So it gets harder to connect with other women, and that's another type of loneliness that comes from being a single mom. So every Tuesday morning we get together here and we have our Tuesday morning coffee break, and I answer questions that you guys write to me, or questions that have come up from other moms in the single mom communities that I'm a part of online and in real life. And today, one of the questions that I have was given to me by Amanda, and it ties right into what we were just talking about. And it's about, how do I find friends as a single mom? Amanda said, I'm having trouble finding friends as a single mom now. How can I find them? So I'm going to take a sip of my coffee and write to me in the comments below. Have you had these things happen? Have you felt lonely as a single mom? Have you felt like it's harder to make friends? Maybe you lost some friends when you became single, or maybe you've always been single and it's been harder for you. Tell me in the comments below while I take a sip of my coffee. It tastes so good. It is fall here and the weather's gotten cold, and I am really loving my hot coffee these days. So thank you, Amanda, for asking that question about how to make friends as a single mom, because you do have to approach it a little bit differently, I think, because in our society, typically people who are married will oftentimes find themselves making friendships through activities that married couples do together. Maybe you're in a small group at your church. Maybe you go to something that has to do with your spouse's job or your job, or you do things together as a couple. Maybe you have a hobby that you pursue with other couples and you do them together. And so you don't have those same type of networking opportunities as a single mom. You have to work a little bit harder to find them yourself. And what I would say is the first thing you can do is exactly what you're doing right now, and that is you can go online to find community there. And that is something that in many ways is easier than ever, but at the same time, you may be thinking, okay, but that's not the same as real friendships. And I agree in the sense that you have to work a little harder, I think, to make online relationships go deep enough to start to really meet some of those emotional needs. Otherwise, they just tend to stay at the surface level. But if you are able to find people online that you can sort of connect with on a deeper level, you can take those relationships farther if you put concerted effort into it. And what I mean by that is, DMing each other, emailing one another, sometimes maybe even meeting up in real life if the person is local. Of course, be careful, use caution, use your best judgment. But I have definitely, through the years, been able to find several friends online who have become more than just an online friend. They've become a true friend, a real friend. And you do have to kind of keep your eyes open and be looking for them. One way that you can do that is you can join some groups online. Probably one of the richest resources for me in the earlier days was a Facebook group of other single moms who were Christians. And they wanted to chat with one another. And we ended up creating a subgroup of about a dozen women that was a smaller group from the original one. And we've really kept in touch through the years. And that has been an amazing resource for me. The second way that you can make friendships is to look around you in the activities that you're already doing or in the sphere that you already move in, and look for someone who needs a friend, particularly another mom who needs a friend. And it may be hard to realize that some of the people that you felt like you could relate to before will not necessarily seek you out or relate to you anymore as a single mom. And that's so hard and painful, I guess, to have to work through sometimes. But I really realized that if there were people like that in my life who didn't really want to connect with me anymore because I was single, that's okay. I didn't need those people in my life. And instead I realized that to have a friend, I needed to be a friend. So I started to open my eyes up to other moms who needed a friend. And as soon as I started to look at it that way, it was amazing. And I began to find friends right and left. And these were people that maybe before I wouldn't have been as willing to befriend. And so this was an amazing part of my own personal development and growth journey, where I realized that by becoming a single mom, I had gained some compassion and some desire to connect with people in ways that I didn't have before. So I started looking for other moms who were single moms. I realized that there were one or two of them at that preschool, and we were able to connect, and we were able to relate if we couldn't go out to Starbucks. But maybe instead of taking a 2-hour coffee break with each other, we hung out in the parking lot and just chatted for 15 minutes a couple times a week. And that became so valuable for me. And I was able to squeeze in friendships into the little areas of margin that I had in my life. And many of those people have really, through the years, been the supports that ended up making a big difference for me. I looked for moms who spoke English as a second language, or for moms who were older than all the other moms, or younger than all the other moms. It's funny when you start looking for people on the fringes, how often you realize you might have ignored them before, but that you can always find them. There are moms who need a friend for whatever reason, and maybe they don't fit into the mainstream of the social group or the normal sphere that you move in. A third way that you can look for friends is to look in the immediate proximity around you a little bit harder than you would have before. And what I mean by that is I ended up finding friends who literally lived in my physical neighborhood who became wonderful friends. And there were at least 2 or 3 of them through the years who ended up playing key roles for me and also for my children that under other circumstances I don't think they would have. So these were people that I wouldn't necessarily have gravitated to if I was just given a room of 100 people to pick friends from. But because they lived close to me in my neighborhood, walking distance from my house, let's say, these were people that we might not have had as much in common as I would have looked for in sort of like a deep friendship that's going to abide for 20 years or more. But they filled a need at the time. And as long as they were people that my kids could connect with their kids, maybe we both had some shared activities that we liked to do. For instance, there was a playground a couple blocks from our houses, and we both liked to take our kids to that playground. These people became friends that filled a real social need for me and my own children. And even if the friendship was only for a season, they were a really important piece of that season. And so I don't want to call this sort of lowering your standards for friendship, but it's more like you just change your standards for what is important to you in a friend. And sometimes that might just mean that proximity and being close and being able to do things becomes pivotal. A friend that you can do things with at the playground twice a week with, but doesn't necessarily connect with you in other ways might be better than a friend who you feel is a perfect match for you, but they live on the other side of the country and you can't go to the playground with them. So in other words, I feel like God brings people into our lives for a season sometimes, and those people have been so crucial for me in the last 10 years in terms of making friendships. So those are just a couple ideas I have, Amanda, about how to make friends when you're a single mom. So look around you. Look online for other people in the online community that you can connect with and see if you can take some of those more surface relationships and go a little bit deeper. Look in your current sphere of people that you rub elbows with on a regular basis and see if it's a situation where in order to have a friend, you can first be a friend and connect with someone else who needs a friend, and then fill in some of the little margin areas of your life, even if you do have to rush off to work or go climb up on that roof and see why the roof is leaking. Maybe just that 15 minutes of chatting in the parking lot fills a real social need that you might have at that time. And then also, be willing to change some of what your expectations are for what friendship might look like in the different seasons of your life, in terms of maybe it's just another mom who has a child who gets along with your child, and you guys can take some laps around the neighborhood and push strollers or get some exercise and talk about the weather, but it's still a companionship that helps you to not feel those pangs of loneliness as much. So I'm going to take another sip of my coffee and tell me in the comments below, have you ever used any strategies like this? Or what other tips do you have? What other ideas do you have about how to make friends as a single mom if you're finding it difficult? So good. So I hope that that helps, Amanda, and I really appreciate you guys having this coffee break with me. Put some more questions in the comments below, and I'll talk about them next Tuesday morning when we have coffee together with the Single Mom Coffee Break. And I look forward to getting to know a lot more of you more deeply and talking about our journeys, whether you've been a single mom for a long time, like I have, nearly 10 years, whether you're brand new, whether you're kind of in a rough patch, or whether you really feel like you've found your place in this world. I'm excited to get to know you better and to have you join this community. Thanks so much. And I upload videos twice a week. The Single Mom Coffee Break is on Tuesday mornings, and then my other videos are on Thursdays. So check back in soon, and I look forward to seeing you then.